We're back with session 49 of our commentary on the Gospel of Mark. And I mispronounced a word yesterday. I wanted to get back to that. We were talking about this word translated robbers, traditionally thieves. I've emphasized that it really denotes a violent person, a bloodshedder. If one were to look at the original text in Jeremiah 7, which we have talked about quite a bit. So that would be a Hamarat Paritzim, a cave of violent persons, and the great sort of definition of this can be found in Ezekiel 18, verse 10. If a man begets a son of Paritz, translated here as a violent son. You may not know exactly what is violent, but it's followed by Shofek Dam, a blood shedder. So that'll give you the idea of the kind of text in Jeremiah Jesus is quoting in Mark 11:17. And again, he's going to follow up with this parable of precisely murderous people in charge of God's vineyard that will be punished, etc. We're going to see that in a little bit in chapter 12. So besides that, I also this morning was reading my Bible, and I was reading Isaiah 24, which is the beginning of the so-called little apocalypse of Isaiah. It's a late text. And chapter 24 says, "Behold, Yahweh is going to raise down the earth, depopulated, overturn its surface." I'd be interested in knowing if that's a catastrophe word. I don't know right now. "And disperse its inhabitants, the people along with the priest." The female servant, like with her lady, the one who sells and the one who buys. So we were saying that this casting out of everything by Jesus in the temple, everybody, those who sold and bought, is a hendiadys, a totality indicated by two, some often opposite things. He directs the entries and exits of Israel, the king of Israel, or knowledge of good and evil in the very first sin of Adam and Eve, or the tree, etc. All that are, many scholars believe, those are totalities indicated by two extremes. Know everything, like gods. So that this is a very literary passage, and he's catastrophizing these tables and seats, etc. The seats, these cathedras, are also used in Matthew 23 for those who sit in Moses' cathedra, the teaching seat of Moses, etc. And precisely immediately after this act and this teaching, you have made it a cave of bandits. The chief priests and the scribes heard it and were seeking a way to destroy him. But they feared him because the crowd, the ochlos in this, uh, the people were astonished at his teaching, his didache. Now this goes right back to chapter 1, where Jesus casts out that first demoniac in Mark. And remember that we covered that way back when. He teaches with exousia, authority, dominion, the same word used for the Son of Man in Daniel 7. It's going to come up very shortly when they ask him, with what exousia do you do this? You know, and he's going to say, this John the Baptist's baptism come from heaven or from men. So we have these interlinked ideas. In Mark 1, you have Jesus casting out a demon or unclean spirit from a man, even though the word ekbalo, like here, the verb to cast out is not used, but that's what it is. And it's the first in a crescendo of exorcisms where he does really use the verb cast out. And we saw that Jesus began to cast out buyers and sellers in the temple. That's what he does. He begins to cast out buyers and sellers in the temple, which recalls this first exorcism. I think Burton Mack, kind of a radical scholar, but he makes these very good points. So that remember that the people were astonished at his teaching. The same exact, I just looked it up, the same exact amazement is mentioned in Mark 1:21 as here. Both times the people are astonished at his didache, his teaching, which I associated didache with Torah, priestly teaching. And remember that in chapter 1, it's not so much the content of the teaching, but the power of this didache, Torah, doctrine, teaching to cast out demons. He's really effective in overcoming evil. Have you come to destroy us? Isn't that interesting? The demon says, you've come to destroy us. It's not necessarily a question. Huh? The punctuation is added later in the text. And here they want to destroy Jesus. In fact, if I were to look at this, have you come to destroy us in 25? Apolesai, I think it's the same verb. So that these are tremendous parallels between the first exorcism and this temple act, and the reaction of the crowd, amazement at his teaching. Doesn't say with exousia, but they're going to ask him a little bit later, the leaders, with what exousia or dominion, authority do you do this? And the crowd is astonished in chapter 1 at his teaching. He goes, a new teaching, kainei didache, according to dominion or exousia. He even commands the unclean spirits, and they obey him. That's the efficacy of Jesus, which the temple's time as a symbol of that, in the Christian view, is over. That kairos is over once the kairos of the kingdom has arrived, Mark 1:15. So that you've got this repetition of a desire to destroy Jesus. Goes back in Mark all the way to chapter 3 when he heals the man with a paralyzed hand, and these strange bedfellows, Herodians, and Pharisees decide to kill him. And this shows you that the leaders are the ones that are opposed to Jesus, not the people. Later, Pilate is going to realize that because of envy, the priests want to do this, and they convince the people who shout. How many shouted, kill him or whatever, crucify him, I don't know, but it's not all the Jews were yelling, after welcoming him to Jerusalem. Not all the population of Jerusalem was desirous of killing Jesus. Some have said that the temple employed half the city, so perhaps you might argue that if half the people in the city depended on their livelihood for the temple and he was accused of being against the temple, maybe you could get as they say in Mexico, an easy crowd, or an easy choir to join in, but I'm not sure. Here, clearly, it's the leaders who want to kill him, and the people are astonished at his teaching, according to exousia, according to dominion of the Son of Man. That's the way it's being presented. And so the leaders decide not to openly arrest Jesus. They're going to do that surreptitiously in the garden or in Gethsemane at night with a betrayer that knows where he's hiding, because I do believe that when evening came, they went out of the city. He was in hiding. At this point in Jerusalem, he's a wanted man for sure. And now we get to, so I think I've covered what I wanted to of the bloodshedder in Ezekiel 18. Now we get to the second part of the fig Newton, so to speak. We get to the aftermath of what happens after his temple act. They pass by in the morning. Remember, this is the whole purpose that Mark has divided up Jesus' entry into the temple, or interrupted it with exiting the temple, then the fig tree, then the temple act, now a second fig tree episode. They saw the fig tree withered away to its roots. So this fig tree really suffered a heart attack, and like the temple does, and is completely dried up. And Peter remembered, goes back to the first part of the sandwich, and said to him, Rabbi, look, the fig tree that you cursed. So now you have an explicit identification of what Jesus did when he said, may no one ever eat fruit from you again, because he was trying to get figs when it wasn't the kairos or season for figs. And now we know that he's actually cursed this tree. And then Jesus answered them and said, have faith in God. So scholars have said that he's going to now list the cult, the new cult of the new covenant, which will consist of faith, number one. Mark 1:15, repent and believe the good news. And with the example that you can actually uproot a mountain, etc. I believe I covered some of this stuff in my dissertation, these verses regarding uprooting mountains and things like that, casting them into the sea, which is kind of a destruction type of thing with reference to the temple. We're going to see that a little bit later in Mark 13, where scholars say Jesus is looking down at the temple from the eschatological messianic Mount of Olives and predicting the temple's destruction. And he says, be taken up and thrown into the sea, and does not doubt in his heart, but believes that what he says will come to pass. It will be done for him. Faith can do it all. Therefore, I tell you, whatever you ask in prayer, now we got number two, faith and prayer. believe that you shall receive it, or have received it already, and it will be yours. Good is done. And whenever you stand praying, however, forgive if you have anything against anyone, so that your Father who is in heaven may forgive your trespasses. So there you have what scholars have called the new ethic in Christianity, or the new cult. Faith, prayer, forgiveness. And if we continue, we get to what I was talking about, which is that they came again to Jerusalem, and he was walking in the temple. The chief priests and the scribes and the elders came to him and said to him, by what authority do you do this, and who gave you this authority to do these things? So this is very, very interesting, because now we have this word exousia again, and it's the exousia of Mark 1. But remember that the exousia in Mark 1 and 2 is really the Danielic exousia of the Son of Man. So and that God gives to whomever he wants, both those things. So that if you went to Daniel 7, the famous third verse, I think is 14, in Daniel 7:14, which we're going to have to talk about this next time quite a bit more, because it's just very packed with stuff. In 7:14, they give the Son of Man 3 times. In Greek, exousia is mentioned. Sholtan in Hebrew. And in other parts of Daniel, there's a great article by Foilet. In other parts of Daniel, it talks about the exousia that God has and gives on earth to whomever he will. Jesus, of course, is going to tell Pilate, you would not have any exousia over me had it not been given to you from above. So that you've got this exousia given to the Son of Man, all the tongues and nations and everybody's going to worship him, which I repeat, Daniel Boyarin, the Jewish gospel, says that's really what got Jesus in trouble, the Son of Man, not the Son of God or the Messiah even. But claiming to be the Son of Man, that was what Boyarin calls the doozy that led to his crucifixion. Boyarin says the Jews argued about all kinds of stuff. You get 10 Jews and you get 11 opinions. But to be crucified over one of them, that must have been a doozy, says Daniel Boyarin, a Talmudic scholar from Berkeley. So that in Daniel, I'm reading here just in my Bible, Daniel 4:31, his exousia is an eternal exousia, and his kingdom lasts for all generations. And we could find, this is the whole statue thing that crumbles. All these empires crumble with a stone not by human hand that hits the clay feet. And the whole history of empires crumbles and the kingdom arrives. This is all biblical theology, folks. And so you've got this as the background of what's going on here. And I'm going to have to get back to Daniel 7, so I don't say it so fast. It's the whole history of the world in Daniel 7, until the Son of Man comes on the clouds, which Jesus is going to talk about several times. And Mark 2:12 says, the Son of Man has exousia upon the earth. And that's exactly what Daniel is talking about. We're going to have to talk about that next time.